Well, the United States has deported 2 million illegal immigrants in the 5 years since President Barack Obama took office. Some Americans say the administration is too aggressive in enforcing immigration law, while others say it is not tough enough. VOA's Klein reports.
The Obama administration is removing illegal immigrants from the country in record numbers, according to Greg Chen at the American Immigration Lawyers Association.
Those numbers under both President Bush and Obama have increased steadily in the past decade and are currently at a real high point. So overall, it's important to recognize that the administration has been incredibly robust in its enforcement practices.
But overall deportation numbers are down, says John Feary at the Center for Immigration Studies.
What we need to see is a serious commitment to immigration enforcement. We need to see deportation numbers actually going up instead of going down as they are now. But thus far, the White House just doesn't seem all that serious about immigration enforcement.
How can the same numbers be seen so differently? Because of the difference between what the government calls returns and removals. The number of returns, immigrants apprehended at the border and sent back home, has plummeted in the past decade. Meanwhile, removals, immigrants formally expelled and barred from returning, have risen to an all-time high. John Feary is concerned that the combined total of returns and removals is down.
So if you're looking at this idea of removals, which is a type of deportation, the numbers do appear to be going up slightly. But if you look at overall deportation numbers, which is removals plus returns, which occur along the border, you see that the numbers are actually going down.
But Greg Chen says the government is still getting tough with illegal immigrants.
The thing to recognize is that President Obama has increased the border presence, and he has made the actual outcomes, the consequences of having been apprehended and deported out of the country, more severe by having a greater number of removals.
However, longtime immigration lawyer Tom Haynes says fewer new deportation cases are making it to immigration courts, which have far more cases than they can handle.
The cases that do get into the court are taking years to get through. So I think that you would have fewer deportations now simply because the courts can't process all this work.
Yes, we can!
Meanwhile, the debate over whether more or less enforcement is needed is likely to shape the course of legislation to reform the U.S. immigration system. It may also affect the outcome of this November's congressional elections. Klein, VOA News, Washington.
Well, for more perspective, we are joined by Regina Njogu, Washington, D.C.-based attorney and analyst. Ms. Njogu, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Now, it looks like there's such a big confusion there. Some say the Obama administration has been extremely aggressive in deporting people. Some say no, hasn't been even aggressive enough. Why the confusion there?
I think it's a question of context and terminology. As deportation really is a pre-1996 immigration lingo that no longer exists in immigration practice and law. And deportation means not only those people that are removed from the interior of the United States, but it also includes exclusions, and those are the peoples that are stopped at the border and not allowed to get into the United States. So when you look at, when you mix up those two terms, there's been a mix-up by many people of those two terms, depending on who you're talking to. If you talk to immigration advocates, they're going to say that Obama is the deportation in chief and that he has deported more illegal aliens than any other previous president. Now, if you talk to conservatives, they will say the converse. They will say, actually, he has not done a good job. Also, understand that on the issue of context, he has actually caused the deportation, the 2 million deportations, 75% of those are criminals who should be deported anyway. And also violators, meaning those people who came to the United States, they were ordered removed. There's a court order ordering them removed, but somehow sneaked and absconded and did not go. Also people who had previously deported but sneaked back in. So I would say there is actually more enforcement of immigration law, but not necessarily that it's deliberate. Yeah.
But now, when it comes to all the people you have to deal with who are in danger of being deported, what are they saying under the new rules or the implementation of the law as it is now? Are they having a harder time, or is it easier for somebody who perhaps has a legitimate reason to be in the United States right now to make a case for themselves?
The only people that should fear being deported are criminals. There is a zero tolerance on people who commit crimes in the United States. However, also understand that the Obama administration has actually put in place executive programs allowing people who have no criminal record and who have strong family ties from being deported. We do have the deferred action on childhood arrivals, and we do also have prosecutorial discretion. Those are two programs that are actually helping people who would otherwise be deported stay in the country. So long as you're law-abiding and you have strong family ties and you're an immigrant, you have nothing to fear.
Sometimes, African migrants want to know the difference. Does the law apply differently, say, to a Mexican migrant as opposed to an African migrant?
Not specifically, but the categories of immigrants, because there are two different categories of immigrants, then necessarily different laws would apply to each. For instance, most of the Latinos normally cross the border and they're undocumented, meaning when they get into the country, they do not have any form of documentation allowing them to stay. And those are normally the ones that are excluded. We call those exclusion, meaning they were never admitted into the country in the first place. Most Africans fall into documented immigrant category because they have to fly in. Usually most of them will have a visa, maybe a visitor's visa or a student visa. But once they get here, they overstay their visas and become illegal. Now, different laws apply to overstayers and also to just people who walk in across the border.
Now, does a person who, let's say, overstays their visa need to necessarily feel like they're criminals that should be terrified of authorities?
No, they should not be terrified of authorities because a violation of immigration law is not a criminal act. There are stiff penalties in terms of, right now, the only repercussion is to be taken to court, and the only thing a judge can do is order you to be returned back to your countries. Otherwise, you're not subjected to any jail term or any fines. So they shouldn't be terrified at all.
Now, what is, in your analysis, the final resolution to this big immigration problem in a few seconds, if you can?
Like everybody else has said, we are in a mess in terms of immigration law enforcement and practice, and that's why we've been pushing for comprehensive immigration reform to make it more humane and to also bolster maybe better humane way of enforcing it.
Okay, and this is, of course, includes politics and a lot of input from legal experts, yeah?
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Njogu, we're delighted to have you here with us. Regina Njogu, Washington, D.C. based attorney and analyst.